Welcome to Something to Talk About from the Bainbridge Island Senior Community Center. I'm Reed Price, and I'm the host today, and we're going to be talking about a program that the BI Photo Club does with the Ars Poetica program every year, pairing artists, photographers with artists, poets. And we'll walk through the slides. They're up on our website. If you happen to be catching this by audio, you might be better off going to youtube.com/BI Senior Center and watching it, because you'll be able to see what it is that we're talking about. I also want to, before we get started, thank Fieldstone Communities of Bainbridge Island for sponsoring this podcast. Fieldstone offers independent living, assisted living, and memory care up on a tranquil Rolling Bay campus. They have day stay and respite care programs. To learn more, call Celia or Jamie at 206-594-1010 or check out their website at fieldstonecommunities.com. Also, let's acknowledge that we are meeting on the homeland of the Suquamish, the people of the clear salt water who have lived here since time immemorial, and we honor them and are learning from them how to be better stewards of the Salish seas and the accompanying lands beside them. So let's see, how should we get started here? Who wants to kick it off? I know, Bob, you were involved with putting together this program for the photo club with Ars Poetica. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about what the concept is.
Sure, I'd be happy to, Read. We've been doing this for several years now. Actually don't remember how many, it's been a while, but Ars Poetica, April is a National Poetry Month, and that's why it's scheduled at this time. What they do is they have local poets submit poems to a panel of judges, and those poems that are selected by the judges are then just put out for artists around Kitsap County and beyond to choose poems to try to interpret through their artwork. And some people do it via sculpture, via paintings. We do it through photographs. And there, I believe, were 9 venues this year, I recall. It's up from last year, ranging from Port Townsend down through Gig Harbor. So it's not just Kitsap County. And then it's actually done nationwide too. So it's a lot of fun, and it challenges, I think, our members to think about their photography a little bit differently, and to also try to incorporate the written artistry with the graphic artistry. So, and I personally find it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting challenge, and it makes probably for some great conversations. You do connect with the two artists, right?
Correct. Yes.
So I don't know if anybody else wants to add anything to what Bob said.
Oh,
If not,
I might just add, just connecting with the artists. Not everyone did it, but many of us get a chance. We get introduced to each other ahead of time, set up a coffee or something. And I actually didn't do that this year, but last year I'd become really good friends with the poet that, I chose one of her poems, and we've gotten together 3 or 4 times. So it was a nice relationship that got started thanks to Ars Poetica. Oh,
great.
yeah.
And then there is every year a event at the photo club where the poems and the pictures are shared. I guess was it April 9th this year?
Yeah. Yes.
And my understanding, we were just talking before we started recording, that this was a full house, that you got a nice turnout of folks to enjoy the collaboration.
Yeah, we had I would say almost close to standing room only.
So the first one we're going to look at here is here's the poem, and Cindy McGregor was the photographer, and Cindy is with us today. You want to tell us a little bit about how this poem moved you?
Sure. I just love that. Though it snowed this morning, your pansies waved yellow hellos as I strolled by, and it was just so upbeat. I felt like I scored when I requested it and got it. And so my initial plan, because this is about a passerby who goes by a window box. It's winter. This person has on a well, like a wool scarf, and kind of, I suspect, finds that the pansies have warmed her as much as the scarf. And so my initial intent was to be literal and recreate the scene. So I went to my teeny deck and took a planter box and put it on a table under my window. So you couldn't see the table, so it looked like it was a window box. And then got some frosted glass and attached that to the window pane so it would look like winter. And found that there were some issues. For instance, trying to find a pansy that looks even vaguely happy in late February in the Pacific Northwest, because all the ones I found, and there weren't a lot of them, were just kind of bedraggled. Those top-notch petals would fold over so they look like they had a very old French beret and they were under some kind of compression. And it was, well, anyway, we kept trying. And I went to Ace Hardware and got their last can of holiday snow and tried to make it look like it was frosted or maybe even had snowed a little bit. That was a total disaster. Anyway, push comes to shove, I decided let's instead sacrifice the realism and go for the feeling that the bypasser got when she was walking by the yellow pansies. So instead I got a light box and tried to get a little bit more upbeat, because the winter just that it was, the light was so flat when I tried to take pictures from my deck that nothing glowed. The flowers were just kind of dilapidated. And I had tried freezing them in water and lighting them from behind, got some really interesting effects, but not that would go with the poem. So instead, I just settled for something kind of uplifting.
I would say it's definitely uplifting. They are very effervescent or something. Even if it turned out to not be what you had hoped for, I think it's pretty special.
I'm so impressed with all the effort you went to reconstruct something. I mean, and I just love that story, and I love this image, and I think it was just an interesting journey for you.
And I think the backlighting from your light box worked out extremely well, Cindy.
Thanks.
Okay, I'm having a little bit of a challenge here with the screen. Let's see if I can make it big again. Okay, there we go. The next poem, I don't know. I don't think Paul is here.
I don't.
Yeah, I don't see him. This one is again some flowers, and weather. Autumn's damp beauty. And let's see what Paul did. He used a picture from, I think, the library.
Correct. He said it. He told us it was at the library. Yes. And I personally thought it was very appropriate. It's a very nice photo. Nice colors, mix of colors, and using the haiku to illustrate the other haikus, I thought was very clever.
Yeah, and obviously there's some autumn going on there.
So is this out in their garden, or is it just a photo that's hanging inside the library?
I
It,
think Paul said it was in the garden outside,
yeah,
didn't
Yeah, okay,
it's a stone. It's a stone in the Japanese garden.
okay, that's kind of what I thought. I just wasn't. It's very nice.
Although I haven't looked at it in this particular light before, so it's pretty special. You know, the thing about art, you put a frame around it, it looks brand new.
Mhm.
Okay, Hadley did this response to Bill Mawhinney's Old Sage, a tabby cat. And I know we're not reading all of these poems, but they are available and you can find them at BI Senior Center .org/gallery or art-gallery. We put up the photos every month and you can read them there. And until the end of the month, they're also in our lobby atrium area. And there is a tabby.
Yes, this was Hadley's cat, and the one that Bill Mawhinney was writing about has sadly passed away. But I think everybody, when we showed this last Wednesday, everybody kind of went, "Ah, it's a very nice cat portrait and fits the poem wonderfully."
And Dorothy, you responded to Seeker. You want to
Yep,
say anything about the response to the poem?
sure. This poem has a lot of, I don't know, it feels like yin and yang. It's talks about a person, a woman, and and how she is so much more than she knows. It talks about her vulnerabilities and yet it also talks about her strengths. And so when it talks about, her autumn leaf hair and her silk gray eyes that are too green in the spring and too blue in the winter, it really made me think right away of my friend Maya. And Maya is somebody that I met in 2019, and this was taken in that year. Maya is she is actually a professional model, but this picture was not actually posed. It was when she turned and just turned around and looked at me. So it's not set up, to be anything but just her. And I just thought that catching this moment with her really summarized a lot about what the poet was trying to say about the woman that they were writing about.
Great. Yeah, I think that's lovely. And I remember seeing this photo earlier when you were doing another assignment, and it fits here as well.
Dorothy, the
Oh, go
color
ahead.
of the hair, the way it glows, it's just gorgeous. I don't know how you could have planned it any better.
Well, it was just catch it because, oh my goodness, look at that, take a picture, because I just saw the sun shining on her hair, and that was exactly it. Was
It's stunning.
catch
It's
it.
a really nice photograph.
Don responded to this poem, Dogwood.
Yeah.
And here's Don's photo.
Isn't that lovely?
Beautiful.
Yeah.
It's just really, really nicely done. And she didn't overdo anything. She let the dogwood speak for itself in its own space.
This is one of my favorite images. All
Yeah,
around. I
very,
just-
very calming.
yeah, it's just, I want it on my wall.
And I do remember last Wednesday, the poet really liked this photograph too. Well, this is a poem I chose called The Elements, and if you read it, it's talking about the, earth, air, water, fire, and it's really talking about the eastern Washington, the Columbia Gorge area with the floods rushing through and the ice and the water and the stone and stuff. So the picture I took to illustrate this was actually taken just south of Dry Falls in central Washington. It's at a place called Lake Lenore Caves State Park. And I actually took this a year or so ago, but when I saw the poem, I said, "Oh, I know exactly what I would need to do with it." And it's got the water down in the basin, it's got the basalt cliffs with the dry grass and stuff. So I just kind of thought this encompassed what the poem Elements was trying to convey about the mix of wind and rain and water and floods and all. So anyway.
Yeah, and you certainly do get a wonderful depth of the land and the the dry and wet and the promise of more rain coming down.
Yeah. Anyway.
This is another one where the light, your use of light, Bob, is really great.
Thank
Yes,
you.
a lot
Thank
of
you.
it's about the light, I think.
Yeah.
It really brings out the striations.
Oh, of the landscape of the
Yeah,
rocks
of the
and-
rock.
yeah.
yeah, rocks. Next up, we have, and I think Richard is here, graffiti. Jacqueline Conus's poem. Richard, do you want to say something about the poem, your response?
Yes. Jackie Conus, I've known for quite a few years. She's in a walking group with me. She was actually one of the original people in Ron Williamson's walking groups from many years ago. This is one of two poems that I chose, and the two poems are dealing with quite different subjects. Graffiti is not a usual subject for poetry, I suspect, whereas the second one I did was a more usual subject for poetry. What I did here was go over to Lakely Harbor, where the old power plant building is. And in some respects, that's a graffiti museum at this point. And I walked around and looked at the outside of the building. I didn't go up into the area where people also do graffiti painting, and tried to see if there were any pieces that I thought were artistic and colorful, because sometimes graffiti is not particularly artistic, in my opinion. And it also takes place in public spaces, which are taken without permission. This space has the permission, at least I assume it's, whether it's formal or not, has the permission for people to paint in it. And I was actually trying to photograph something that I felt was artistic and was colorful. And I think some of the work there did lend itself to that. And this particular piece was one of them. And it was kind of consistent with some of, I talked to Jackie about her poem, and some of her questions also dealt with when is something art versus when is it just personal expression. I know Jackie liked this picture. In fact, I gave it to her at the end of the talk. And it really was an interesting experience to go there and look at it through a camera lens rather than just walking by it, which is what one usually does over at Lakely Harbor on that very nice trail.
Yeah, I think this is I mean, it's so close up that you definitely appreciate the skill of the airbrush artist, and it becomes abstract in a way that I don't know, maybe sounds looks a little bit like jazz might sound.
Yeah.
The next one, Holding On, Rob Dalton's poem. Carol Evanger. The autumn season, and we have a lot of autumn here. We have a lot of seasonal stuff. Again, we're looking at some nature elements, and here is her response.
On this one, I think I really like how Carol has the path there as a leading line to draw your eye into the forest with the leaves, the fall leaves and stuff. I think the path really makes this photo.
I like the mistiness in the distance.
Oh,
Me
yeah,
too.
I think this is really a great photo. It's draws you in and makes you wonder what's ahead.
I felt the same way about this. So I was jealous of this one because the second one that I had in this series that I selected also is a forest and a path. And the lighting in this is just quite spectacular and a really terrific photo.
You can really appreciate the depth of field here. It seems to be clear all the way back into that light. And the detail is consistent in a way. You can check out what's going on. You have a clear vision, even though the mood obviously changes from the foreground to the background. This is a poem that Diane, you didn't have a lot of words to work with here, from Diane Walker. Would you care to say anything about it?
I do. I'm talking, I'm forgetting that I'm muted. Yeah, when I read this poem, I just instantly thought this is what I want to do because I live on Eagle Harbor and I take photos all the time of the harbor and the boats, or I'm just looking at it. And so the photo that I ended up using was actually taken last year. I tried taking a few others and I have many other copies, but I just thought this one came out especially well with the flat water and anyway, and the sun coming up in the morning, and I love the light on the ferries and just the feeling it gives. So anyway, it was a pretty literal interpretation of the poem, and so
Dreaming of Adventure.
yes, yeah. Harbor Dreams is the name of the poem. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I love that kind of lighting that's so dramatic, and how it has so many different facets to it. You know, where it's kind of brighter up above and then it's kind of looming down below, and it's lovely, Diane.
Oh, thank you. Well, I was definitely drawn to the lighting. It's
Diane, you mentioned how you would have liked to have had Don Bacchus's photo on your wall, and I was thinking I wouldn't mind having this one on mine either.
oh,
It's
sweet.
lovely.
Well, we could arrange that. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh,
Indeed, we're back with another of your choices.
yes, this one by Tia Hudson is kind of about qualities that we may develop as we come to a certain age, so to speak, such as empathy and the ability to balance so many of the things we run into in life. And so before we look at the photo that I took, just wanted to say a few things about this one. It reminded me so much of my grandmother that it literally took me back 70 years as if it was yesterday. And my grandmother was born in the 1880s, lived with us as I was growing up, as was typical in the 1950s. And she's described so much in this poem in terms of wispy white hair, would sit and look out for a lot of time. Her room was my care without judgment room, where I could go in and say anything I wanted. And we would play canasta for caramels, craft caramels, until one day when she said, "Let's play for my watch instead." And she had a watch with her name engraved on the back, Pearl, for a pearl of great price. And within a week, she had passed. So I think yeah, I think you know when your time comes. But anyway, so it made me think of her. And part of at the end, Tia Hudson says, "Settle with folded hands to wait for that mercy." And I imagine my grandmother toward the end doing just that. So if we can look at Wendy now, I wanted Wendy to be much more of a modern senior, approachable, non-judgmental, empathetic. And so I just thought that she had the perfect face for that. She is posed, admittedly, obviously posed, but her hands are that way because I had read that the first person to paint portraits with hands like that was Leonardo da Vinci with the Mona Lisa. And so I thought it would be kind of fun to duplicate that. And then I noticed that Wendy is bending one finger. So she has added her own twist to the mix for Leonardo. I made some unfortunate rookie mistakes, such that her face is not as well lit as I had hoped. But anyway, that's it.
Well, those of us who know Wendy know that that not only does she look the part, she is the part here. Very much caring without a lot of judgment, more open to who you are. We really are grateful to have her hang out often here at the Bainbridge Island Senior Community Center. And that is, I think knowing her, it's a great capture of her personality too.
I think the lighting on her face is fine, Cindy. I like it a lot, especially because she's got bright lights behind her and stuff. I think it's really nice lighting. It's very flattering, I think, lighting for her.
Well, thank you. I felt like I didn't quite do her justice.
Oh, I think it's good, but I also just want to say the story you just told about your grandmother was really moving. That's really sweet.
That is a wonderful thing to have as a memory, and also that that was a gift that you had in your life. And when we lived with somebody, I was in close proximity to my grandmother, who didn't want to admit that she was born in the 1800s. She always said, "Oh no, it was pretty much the 20th century, really." But you have somebody like that, and they are both part of your life in the mundane, as well as a special thing that you might not really appreciate until it's gone.
Yeah.
Because especially in modern times, I guess, grandparents and grandkids can be at separate ends of the earth.
Yeah. I just was thinking about it just real quickly, that memories fade, but in the hands of a really skilled poet can restore. I mean, here this stranger I'd never met before sent me 70 years back to memories that were just so clear. And I mean, poetry does restore. It's really neat. Anyway, sorry.
I agree.
Okay, Dorothy, yes. This is a poem, again, another poem by Diane Walker, the second we've been looking at. Would you care to speak to it?
Sure, sure. Um, she starts out the poem alluding to the sunflower making its final obeisance to Mother Sun, and the sunflower going to fail. But she ends the poem more upbeat, um, because after she talks about the future demise of the flower, she says, "But now, while still at peak and fresh, her trusting innocence melts my heart." And so I concentrated on the trusting innocence and at the peak of freshness for my photo. And she also alludes to the seeds of the sunflower and how they will fall to the earth. And so so I wanted to really bring the seeds of the sunflower out. I wanted to just let it be the sunflower in all her glory. And what might be the future was not here yet. The poem says, for now, right now, this is where she's at. And so I wanted to capture the sunflower right now with where she is in the moment. And so I just made it about the flower and nothing else.
Well, she is something to look at. It's a very, very dramatic picture, right?
Mhm.
Because of the frame.
Mm-hmm.
It's so sharp. I love it.
Yes, and it's a view that you don't always get of any flower, but sunflowers in particular. And I think it really does exactly what you want it to do.
Well, yay, there you go.
I really like the texture you got in the petals.
Thank you.
And the way it's cropped, it's perfect.
Thank you.
The Roger Midget poem, holographic. And Hadley responded to this one as well.
Last Wednesday, Hadley talked about this and he said, oh, when he read this poem, he said, oh, I go to the Seattle Art Museum all the time. I know that coffee shop very well. And so he thought, I can do that. And he told this pretty funny story about, it took him, what, I think 3 trips over there. He went over there multiple times and no one was walking along the street outside the art museum. He said, what's with this? You know, I think he made
Waited and watched.
three trips he made over to finally get some people on the sidewalk walking along outside the shop there. So I admire his persistence.
Yes, persistence of a different kind than we heard earlier from Cindy with the pansies, but there you go. And that's exactly where we are. City scene,
Yeah.
putting you right there where the poem was.
And in the poem, it was essential to have people involved. You couldn't
Yes,
have a sidewalk; it missed the poem, and so he had to wait and come back to get the people.
exactly. Richard, this is your second poem, Sue Hyland's poem.
Yes, and this is kind of, for me, at the other end of the spectrum from graffiti. This is a nature setting. It's on a trail that I've walked quite a few times, as has Sue in talking to her. In fact, I walked this trail with a group today. Hers was taken during the summer, I assume, because she talks about how the trail was dry and dusty. When I took the photo along this trail on the Forest to Sky Trail, it was winter. And so the look is somewhat different from the look it would have been either today or in the summer. But what I tried to do, and what I would try to do in any nature-oriented photography, is it gives some feeling of what it's like to be on this trail, as well as to have obviously some artistic expression of it. But this is a super nice trail, easy one to walk, with with a lot of variety in it. And so that's what I did here.
Very nice.
I like the curve of the trail. That's really a nice place you chose to start from so that you could follow it into the photo.
And that's what I wanted to do with that part in the center is a bridge that goes over a very wet part of the trail. But yes, thank you.
And the fact that it's light in the distance, it has a similar feel to it. It's nice.
Yeah, the light patch there on that last curve draws your eye right into the body of the photo.
Mhm.
It was hard to find light in that particular day that I was out there.
Yeah, and because of the lightness of the worn part of the trail, it carries the theme. You get these little sparks. I mean, I don't know if it's actually light, but
It
the
is.
worn down spot there, and then there's some light on the left. It basically carries your eye through and back across the photo. Very nice. Okay, Boatyard Reflections. The bold is a hidden poem. So I'm gonna ask you to maybe come back and look at this one. And see what you found. I don't know if this was discussed, that anyone would like to talk about what Carol was thinking here.
Well,
Did she mention anything?
well, she did. The poet hid a poem within a poem with using the boldface type, and I think there was no discussion between Carol and Frank, but Carol responded by 2 photos, and so she had one to illustrate the overarching poem of the boatyard, and I think there the poet mentioned, Frank mentioned, in fact, he had his father with him. He's talking about his father had a boat that he had memories of being on his father's boat for a long time and just loved the potential, kind of like the poem Diane did, about the harbor dreams. He was talking about the sense of adventure and things to possibilities and stuff walking around a boatyard, which Carol illustrated. But then the other poem was another one about going on through the night. And so Carol had a second photograph illustrating the poem within a poem. And I just, the fact that they didn't communicate and plan this, but it worked out, I thought, really nicely.
Mm-hmm.
So I would encourage people to go back and look at the poem and just read aloud the boldface ones, because it is a nice juxtaposition.
Mhm.
And here's Judy has a poem, I Left the Dandelion Alone, and Paul Bryans is the photographer again on this.
Oh, no,
And
no.
I do think,
Oh, go ahead.
yes.
Go ahead.
Oh,
Go ahead.
I was just going to say something about how, dandelions are often seen as a weed, but certainly not to bees or other critters. And that's sort of an appreciation of this here. And here is a actual illustration of the relationship and why a dandelion might be a very welcome sight for some species.
Paul made the comment that he's normally not a big fan of dandelions, but when he read this poem, he realized that yes, he should be a bigger fan of dandelions.
Okay, Don Bacchus had a response to another Diane Walker poem, What Will Become of the Mountain? And we'll just look at this for a minute. And then look at Don's response, which is stunning.
I really enjoyed what Dawn said during our meeting about her youth and the time that she spent working at the lodge and growing up and walking the trails as a youngster around all over in the area of the mountain. And it just sounded to me like it was not just precious to Dawn, but fundamentally shaping part of her spirit. So anyway, she had really strong feelings about the mountain, and I think she expressed them well in this picture.
And Dawn did mention she took this at point no point, and it was not an accident that the whatever those shrubs are in the foreground, how Dawn positioned it so that the shrubbery in the foreground mimics the shape of the mountain in the background, which I really like.
Yeah. And Sharon Ostenson's poem is the last one we're going to look at, with a response by you, Bob.
Yeah, I kind of chose this. It's the North Star, and you can see it's quite a short poem. I'm sure, I mean, it's got a nautical theme, which I think is a very literal interpretation. I think there's more to it than that, but I chose to illustrate it with a fairly literal interpretation, but it's a photo I took up at Norwegian Point, just talking about Point No Point, right next door at Norwegian Point there in Hansville. And I was sitting up there, I think I was up there for about an hour and a half of shooting. This is actually 400 pictures that I composited in order to show the star motion and stuff. But I kind of definitely shows the North Star, and it's got the boats going across in the foreground and stuff like that. So I kind of, like I say, took a literal approach to it, but it, to me, pretty much hits home with the North Star anyway.
She liked it.
Yeah. She liked it. I like it. I love the combination of different elements of light.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's just one of those things. It's kind of, I kind of like those things where you're sitting out there by yourself up there in the middle of the night for an hour and a half with your camera on a tripod, and just I had it set to automatically fire off a shot every 14 seconds and stuff, and then I came home and composited them. But anyway, I just kind of liked it. It's kind of fun.
So does your battery hold out that long, or do you have?
Yeah, it did. I made sure I had a fresh battery, and I had another one in my pocket keeping it warm. So if it did poop out, I could quickly swap out and hopefully not lose very much. But no, one battery actually did just stay active for that whole time. One thing
how long does it take to composite 400 photos?
I don't know, really not that long. I don't remember how long it took, Richard, but it's not that long because I used a program called StarStack X, which actually does it automatically. And it actually, I don't remember, of course, we have like 64 gigabytes of memory on this photo computer, so we've got a lot of memory. But it didn't take, I mean, it was minutes, not seconds, but it wasn't that long.
Oh,
And
very
one thing,
impressive.
Diane, for your comment about the battery, just, you may or may not have noticed, but if you turn off autofocus, because I had manually focused the camera,
Sure.
autofocus drains your batteries a lot. So when you're using in manual focus, they last a long time, a lot longer than they do if you're using autofocus. Anyway.
There you go. A tip for nighttime photography. Keep your focus. Well, thank you guys. This has been a wonderful, I always love it when you photographers come and share what you've been doing with us.
Well, thank you,
and-
Rick.
Thank you.
And you have a brand new website. And if anybody wants to learn more about the Bainbridge Island Photo Club, which meets regularly here at the Senior Community Center and encourages artistic expression, whether you've got chops when you walk in the door with photography or whether you gain them by learning from other folks. And it's biphoto.org, I believe.
Photoclub.org.
biphoto.club.org. Thank you.
Yeah, and
See you. Yeah,
yeah,
go
thanks,
ahead.
Reed, again for giving us the opportunity to one for hosting this right now and letting us show photos in the lobby, but also for having a meeting room, because we did have a very large crowd last Wednesday, and if we didn't have that nice Hooney Hall, it would have been very challenging. So we really
Good. And we've worked together to make it a good experience. I'm sure that you appreciated the combination of the new screen that you helped create and the speakers that we did together too. So anyway, thank you all, and we'll talk again next month.
All right. Thank